A couple of months ago, I met some friends of mine at the pub for a few beers. It was during the time of the 2015 Rugby World Cup, and we were all sat at a table watching the pre-match commentary of the inaugural game when one of my friends, he spoke up about a creepy experience he had while he was cycling to work one morning. He works a shift which alternates weekly. One week, he'll be on the early shift starting at 6 a.m. The next week, he'll be on the later shift starting at 2 p.m. On this particular occasion, he was on the early shift, and because he cycles to work, it usually takes him around an hour and a half travel time each way. He started off at 4:30 in the morning, which is a good 2 or 3 hours before the sun rises, so it was still dark. The weather was miserable, and there was a light drizzle falling, but he carried on. Along his route, he takes a path which veers off around the side of a lake. This certainly isn't the shortest route to his workplace, but it is definitely the safest. The alternative is to carry along busy roads, which is never good for a cyclist. The path around the lake is about 2 or 3 meters wide and is usually very quiet, if not a little spooky. It begins as a bend and then it carries on in a straight line for about 200 or 300 meters. There are also no lights along the way. On one side of the path is the lake. The other side is hemmed in by a very thick bush, and beyond that brush is a very busy dual carriageway. As I said, there are no street lamps along the path, and because he does a lot of cycling, he uses a very expensive light on the front of his bike. He had just come out of the bend and was picking up speed down the straight. He could see all the way down the pathway, and it was empty, so he decided to get his head down and pump the pedals as hard as he could. When he had gotten up to a good speed, he lifted his head, and there, about 2 meters in front of him, stood a woman. Even though he saw her for only a split second, he was able to describe her in quite some detail. She had dark hair, which was hanging down over her face. It was wet from the rain and it was obscuring her features. Her gaze was directed at the ground. She was also holding a handbag over her shoulder, and she was wearing office clothes. She was standing with both feet together, and she had high heels on. He was going so fast that he only just managed to steer off to the left, and he missed her by mere inches. The odd thing was that she didn't react to this at all. In fact, she didn't move. She didn't even make a sound or cry out. She did not even flinch. She just stood there, stock still, like a mannequin or something. As he went past her, he slammed on his brakes and turned to apologize and to ask if she was okay. But to his horror, the path, it was empty, and a strange, eerie silence had descended over the whole scene. No one was there. It seemed impossible because she couldn't have run off into the lake, and she couldn't have run through the thick brush as it was just too dense. Plus, she couldn't have done either anyway in the couple of seconds that it took him to stop his bike and turn around. My friend said that it was like she just vanished into thin air. It really did spook him at the time, and he said that all the hairs on his body stood up on end. But this wasn't the creepiest part. As we sat there listening to his tale, he started to break down a little because in the weeks since it happened, he had felt like someone or something had been following him. He would be walking to the shops late at night when no one else was around, and he would hear high heels walking behind him. When he turned around to see who it was, there would be no one there. He would wake in the night, gasping for air because it felt like someone had their hands around his throat. There were some other strange things too, but overall, he had this overwhelming feeling of being watched all the time. We saw less and less of our friend over the next few weeks. He seemed to be gaunter and more exhausted each subsequent time that we saw him. Over the last month or so, we haven't seen him at all, and he stopped responding to our texts and calls. I bumped into his sister in town the other day, and when I asked about him, she said that he spends most of his time in bed now, just staring at the ceiling and mumbling to himself. I'm really concerned, but I don't know what to do. I just hope that he's okay. G'day mates, it's B-Buster here. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video guys. And you know, I once knew this guy who used to go regularly to my local pub, and with a drink in one hand, he would tell ghost stories and drink beer until the early hours of the morning. Come to think of it, I guess you could say that he was there for the booze. Alright, stop B-Buster, stop, you're in over your head here, man. That was alright though, come on guys, that was a bit of a longer one that time, you know, I had a bit of build up, you know, I was working towards something. You have to admit it was a little bit better this time, right? Come on, give me some credit here. Well, thanks again to the Hive member that bravely shared their story for us all here, and I hope you're doing well. For the chance to have your story feature in a video, you can send your story to my email, which is in the description below. And as always, keep them coming guys, as this channel relies upon your stories to continue. Also, please do me a favor and just state in your email what your story is about in the description, and also provide me with a short written statement of consent just so that I can be above board with everything. Also, please remember to tell me in the email if you would like to remain anonymous, and please change any names if you don't want particular names to be shared. As always guys, it would be awesome if you could like, share, comment and subscribe if you're new. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram for updates throughout the week. You can also catch me on my second channel, all of which have links in the description below. Thanks again for all the love and support and for always tuning in and watching the videos guys, and I'll see you mates in the next one.